also playing against each other back on the mainstream. If you're watching us on Twitch, just delete the Bravo from the URL and you're good to go, and you can probably do something similar if you're watching us on other websites as well. Let's get into it as the first round is going live here in just a moment between BDS and SSG. First man on the board as well. It's an interesting one. Lion going to be knocked out. Obviously, we've been seeing a lot of Lion play recently to be able to negate some of the movement from the defenders, so it makes perfect sense to see him get banned out here. Habana as well, the preferential choice to be knocked out in terms of a hard breacher.
Yeah, especially with Chalet going towards the offensive favor, Lion just making that even more so with those EE1Ds. So a nice ban there from Space Station, and won't allow BDS to clear things or force SSG to hold positions as Star Wortley. So BDS will more than likely try and rebuff that with something like Dokkaebi. So we'll just have to see. But for the rest of the bans, extremely straightforward. Malusi actually going to get banned out. We don't see that one as commonly as we used to when she first came out.
Bar Gaming going to be an interesting initial choice here for SSG as they work themselves downstairs into that. We'll see how this works out for them in terms of utility as well. Lots of mitigation coming in. In fact, all three of the utility mitigators have been selected here from SSG, definitely wanting to try and prevent any chaos via nades or other throwables, if at all possible. So we have the Womai. Well, of course, the laser gates coming out from Bosco, and the ADSs from Fultz as well defend all of this off and re-buffer, more than likely, the extensions that will also be deployed upstairs to the library, which will be the first target, more than likely, for BDS to try and steal control over, the first major target at least.
Whew, this game's already getting warm, John. Had to take the jacket off here. I'm excited for this one. We got to see if our North American friends, I guess. I mean, we're always rooting for them when we ever come to land. No bias over here, but slightly. I mean, we are the only two Americans here, so we kind of have to hold our flag, don't we? Especially up against BDS. This French squad has always been so very dominant since they came out of the woodworks back in the day. Chaiko got off of his ban and immediately started running amok of EU, and it seems like this train has no brakes. Minus them winning a major, they've basically done everything else you can.
As we continue to see the opening action unfold, it's like a fact off on his own, as you might expect the Nook to be doing, trying to work their way into trophy, maintaining that early positioning. The rest of BDS, much like we predicted in the pre-round here, is going to start putting some of that early focus on the clear towards the library, but obviously SSG has a lot of defensive assets placed in that portion of the map as well. They will be more than ready for the challenge in this portion of the map, alongside of the utility I was talking about previously. Nice little push early on here. A spray, rather, does some decent damage against Like a Fact. Rampy able to contend more than likely against him deeper into the dining room areas. That scares Like a Fact away, and will eliminate at least one of the positions BDS is looking to use to crunch out the bar position downstairs.
BDS surely are taking their time, though. You can see attempting to walk SSG back towards the site. They don't want to over-aggress and overplay their hand, potentially giving over some key pieces of utility. Could make this take a little bit too difficult. That frag grenade coming in hot and heavy onto Fultz's location. He'll have to drop down, hightail it out of there. He'll back off into bar stock. Chaiko won't be allowed to take him out just yet from inside of Mudroom.
SSG remaining stalwart at the moment, not showing anything over to the players from BDS, and with good reason too. They want to bait them into these setups. Yeti deploying quite prominently. They would pick up the first kill of the round finally, a little over halfway through it as well, so a pretty quiet one so far. It's Chaiko on the entry that gets caught out trying to work his way into the side position next to library. Like a fact, now ready to finally insert himself. He's been able to find a position in bar, but Fultz expects it, has the angle primed already, shuts him down as well. BDS 0 for 2 on these entry attempts so far, with very minimal support behind them. Lens finally activates upstairs, will steal away control of the library. Renshiro similarly wants to be able to try and move back in through Ego here, but the laser gate blocking him off, and there's another angle downstairs that he's paying mind to as well.
Space Station seemingly good for a round here. They just have to stand tall. BDS, they're finally putting a toe in the water upstairs and on the library balcony. Looking to see if they can transition into library or maybe downstairs. They do have Renshiro on the sled, so I'm really looking for them to work this verticality as such. Break this open, make it to where Bosco and the rest of the gang can't peek into the verticality too easily or just reposition at all, especially from this backwards position from Bosco here in bar stock. It's going to be handled extremely well from Brede as soon as that info game comes through. BDS, they somehow managed to get control of this site. SSG has given up the good goods, and BDS will get this plant down after Limbs takes out Rampy. Renshiro, he tries to pick up the frag. Yeti, he needs to get something done, and he will. It's up against the Limbs, and he catches the body. It's a 2 versus 2 going into the post plant, make it a 2 versus 1 in favor of BDS.
Great recovery at the end of the day from BDS to get to this point in the round. SSG seem to be holding all angles accountable for, but BDS pierces past it anyway, and now leaves it all on Yeti here to drop back down, attempt the 1v2. Clutch now at half HP also tries to fire back a response in here, makes it down on the drop due to Renshiro choosing to wait things out from behind the bar, but Renshiro making that play with good reason so he can set up for the shutdown as it's BDS that control the opening round on the attack.
Yeah, bad late round positioning there from SSG gets them punished. I mean, a lot of the site areas in which they could play obviously got soaked up from the angles that were created from BDS up top, but a lot of the crossfires necessary to keep SSG in it just really not there. We kind of had a cove of them over near the mud room in the stairwell. Well, BDS came in from Fireplace Hall, and there wasn't a single person to stop them from doing so. Yet he tried to recoup up top with some of the frags and angles that he had at his disposal, but it was simply not enough. SSG definitely looking like they had it during the mid-round, but BDS get out scot-free.
BDS, let's see now if they can replicate that success moving into the second round here. SSG obviously shifting around their own perspective. They are going to move to a different part of the map over here inside of dining room and kitchen instead. Still will see those same reinforcements going down over into library to try and extend out the play from BDS. They will need to clear that under usual circumstances to be able to follow through and execute downstairs, but they could also try to ignore that, work their way in from Solarium's side as well. So wait and see if that's going to be the plan from BDS, how exactly they'll look to take this.
BDS out of the gates and onto the field for round 2, and it's looking quite similar to what we had in the previous round. Just a lot louder this time with Like Effect on the Ash and the Dokkaebi coming in from Lems. So we'll see if they can use that to attempt to clear out a little bit easier. SSG did end up having the man advantage when it came to that mid-round like we were discussing prior, but this time BDS going to be searching for that opening frag. They're going to get it. Shaiko will take down Rampy.
Indeed, getting Rampy, but at the cost of a down against Renshiro. No confirmation on Renshiro just yet, though. Shaiko trying to see if someone wants to get adventurous, leaping out. Chuck the nade in for relative safety to prevent Hot and Cold from going for the swing, but they thought the nade was going to give them a full insurance policy. No, that's just the deductible. Hot leaps out for a third as well as he takes another member of BDS away from them. Like a Fack and a Lems are all that remains now in the 2v4.
There's no way that we have NA Hot and Cold on land in Sweden. The man pushes the window immediately after BDS are getting Renshiro back off the floor. Neither Shaiko or Renshiro paying attention to the hop there from Ego. Extremely well done from Hot and Cold. What a read, as well as what a follow through. Now BDS, I don't think they're getting this one, John.
Not at all here. We'll have to see if Like a Fact and the Lems are able to work anything at all. Let's keep in mind, they're not working with 0 map control, no case in their hand either. Case pretty sure is going to be retrievable. I think they just left it outside of a doorway. Yeah, it's still sitting down below here. So fortunately, not left out there on purpose. Did end up going down to a player on rappel, but still is easy enough to retrieve. And they've got 1 minute and 15 seconds. So certainly not impossible by any means, but definitely a tough one considering the 0 map control they have. Although Like a Fact has already made some progress on that. Drifting in due to the lack of resistance from SSG now and taking most of the second floor away. Should be able to open up at least one top-down angle, which I think he may have just done there with the Ash charge. I'll wait and see, of course, what Lems will attempt to work towards. The flash down, but it's not the right spot. It's Bosco winning on the inside of the kitchen instead and following it through with the second kill as well. A shutdown from SSG and a full house between Bosco and Houghton on the frag department.
Yeah, asking for a lot there, Lems. Asking for so very much. Mismanagement is what that would have taken there, and obviously that's all on Bosco's shoulders. So probably not going to happen when it comes to that angle, but obviously you do have to throw it at the wall and hope it sticks, right? I mean, no point in sitting outside or doing anything else. Got to try and win out that round. It's not going to happen for BDS at that time, but it surely did in round 1, didn't it? So SSG is going to throw it down into the basement after that successful round off the back of Hot and Cold getting pretty creative with a push onto Ego.
Back into the basement hold on. This can oftentimes be the toughest one for our defenders, but We'll have to wait and see if that ends up being true for this matchup. SSG really coming alive in that previous round. Problem is getting alive through a lot of aggression, mainly from hot and cold, and it's a bit more difficult to do so on this site due to the split nature that your teammates need to deploy towards one member. Yeah, they can take a risk, and we could, in theory, see an out-and-about play like we saw from hot and cold in the previous round. But in terms of getting away from it and then making it back to the site without getting traded, that's where things get a little bit tougher. And BDS should be able to manage the equation up until the point where they reach the site. That's when SSG's anchors are going to have to step up to the plate and put a great defense forward here, as they will oftentimes be the squad that has to save this round for their team.
Round 3, going to be the decider on who takes the lead amongst these two. They've been neck and neck thus far, both of them having their ideas on how these rounds are going to go. Attempting to execute them, and both of them obviously finding some form of success. BDS obviously not in the best of straits after that last round, but more than likely going to be a quick bounce back, as we would all suspect. Haven't changed up anything past the Thermite and Ace coming in here. Not going to have the Dokkaebi any longer either. So going to be keeping it to some more frag-centric type operators, with especially Shaiko still going to be on that Yana, which we've seen him run time and time again. And a good old-fashioned bandit trick is what's going to get rid of the first exothermic charge.
BDS continuing to look for options to get themselves towards the inside. Bosco so far successfully fending off the opening attempts there with the trick play on top of the snowmobile garage door. BD will spot that there is one player peeking out through this drone hole here. He's trying to see if they will potentially have any angle to use to peer back at him and hopefully eliminate him, but it's not looking likely at this point. BDS going to need to look for other options of insertion overall too. As you can see, they've gone now for the side entrance back over into Wine, alongside of a few other spots on the map, as they're going to try to deploy themselves through the car garage side instead and take this control away from SSG. Only a minute and a half to do so now.
Man, Shaiko has been running that same skin combo with the Spider Charm. I'm pretty sure the entire time I've casted him. It's either that or the royalty skin from all the way back in Operation Red Crow. That's year 1, season 4, for those of you that don't know. I believe that skin's actually from a very similar timeline as well, but oh my, SSG. This is looking like some 2020 stuff to me if I've ever seen it, but Renshiro quickly wisp that away and give them an opportunity. Rampy, though, with a nice frag onto Lycofac. He'll get rid of the, I believe, Claymore that was down there as well, saving his own hide, and SSG potential to go up on the defensive end.
Rede and Renshiro, all that remains now. A little bit of a better situation when compared to the last round. At least they do have a trade against Yeti, but still not great, especially when you're considering they need to work their way into a basement site, which is just a big metal box that SSG can lock themselves into if they like to here with only 30 seconds left to play. Will more than likely become the status quo here, forcing BDS out into the open, forcing them to take these fights, potentially peek directly into 2, if not 3 members of SSG. More than likely set up just like that there. We see Hot and Cold striking down Renshiro to take out the remnants of BDS. Breeding, all that remains here on the hard breach in a 1v4. Has the intel on Hot and Cold's position, but aside from that, nothing really to work with here, and that'll show as he works his way into the site. Fultz has no problem shutting it down with just an aggressive little peek here. Round, and now goes over to SSG's hands. We are tied up.
Well, BDS not exactly having the best opener to that one. Is SSG able to take full control? I'm going to send it over to Bar Gaming. BDS, I like that they were able to keep their strategy window open, right? They first things first, go over to Snowmobile, start things off on that side, but it doesn't really work out. They have Rampy, or rather Bosco on the other end, managing bandits, and able to bandit trick out one of those exothermic charges from Thermite. BDS, though, like, okay, cool, that's not too bad. We still have a lot of people kind of maneuvering around the map, so maybe we send it over to Big Garage and try and come in from that area. No, that one didn't work either. They try to work their way, and they eventually get the wall open, but it's too little too late. SSG had been finding frags across the board and abound across the map as well. Shaiko getting taken down in a pretty awkward situation around the bar area. I believe he tried to push down the stairwell, but really didn't get to have our eyes on that one. So past that, round 4 up, and BDS going to be going back to the Dokkaebi. They also have Ying and Capital along here as well. The Yana and the Sledge have been what has been sticking around on this offensive side, and for most teams, that's usually how we see it on a majority of maps.
So BDS, of course, now down by that 1 round, and SSG starting to set themselves up for a successful run. Is what we were talking about before, about how SSG's defensive side has looked quite promising here, despite the fact that this is generally an attacker-sider map. So if they're able to keep this edge going and negotiate even a 4-2 scoreline, things will be looking quite better for them.
Okay, so Space Station, they're not going to play anybody in death spot here for Library. That's that corner area that we usually see Fultz in with some ADSs and stuff like that. They don't trust it up against the burn game from BDS. I mean, why would you, especially when they're bringing Capital? Those fire bolts can mean the world to a team. It's going to be a frag grenade out here and a check, but obviously nobody home. We already know that. This is a great calculation from Space Station Gaming, as they still have plenty of bodies upstairs. 3, in fact. One on the balcony, one inside of that tiny room, and the other one over in the library hallway that can help and act upon anything that BDS does once they actually hop into this. That's actually going to be like a nice little one-way here for Fultz. One of the discs catching up, I believe, one of those fire bolts, the only counter for Capital in the game. The other tactical bolt, though, will work out. Like a fact, does get hot and cold. Does Fultz have anything to say? Hasn't been able to find the angle for himself just yet, and he can't push back out on that rotation. There's a big risk that somebody in Library takes him out if he does try to go for that ego swing, and it really doesn't even matter anymore. Lem's completely switching positions as he'll move down towards the fireplace door.
Fultz continuing to patiently wait out. Presence being slung his way. The drone revealing it, but it's quite an obvious spot to begin with, so not going to be forced to swing away just off of a measly little drone like that. He'll even have additional support still. Waiting in the connector over towards the metal stairs here. He redeploys over towards it, throws out a few more of those magnets just to rebuffer it for the eventual play they're expecting to come in from the players on BDS. Rampy gonna get scared away from the first floor side door here. Brede, off of that distraction, is able to work his way into Billiards and start the plant process. Bosco wrapping back around. He's gonna be far too late though. Brede will be able to potentially fend this back off. Rampy did successfully knock out Shaiko, so it's all on Brede right now. Timing, I think that Candela throw, and there it is, now blinding out Bosco and anyone else that tried to re-peek him before he moved away from this one. The post plant now set up here for the players on BDS. But SSG taking them down regardless. Fultz with the pickup on Alems, now taking the player advantage. But look at Like a Fact setup, just tearing him down head by head. It's a quad from him, leaving just Bosco in play for the 1v2.
Bosco, big brain plays, but Like a Fact, he's already done the dirty deeds, hasn't he? He got all the kills necessary. Space Station rocking a hard place when it comes to this retake. It's an ace for Like a Fact, and I do believe it's his first one on LAN. If I'm mistaken, I'm sorely sorry, but definitely always want to call that out when it happens for our new players. So fantastic job from him and for BDS. Really, really awesome in that round, especially with the positioning of that plant, how quickly Brede was able to get that down. Bar gaming is always difficult to retake when that plant goes down. You have to deal with all those players outside, including the verticality if they have that library control, which, I mean, if you're planting there, you definitely should. Just saying. Yeah, SSG, I mean, it's always going to be difficult trying to play into that. Like a Fact, just making it even more so on the library retake for them.
So BDS bounces right back into the game now. SSG beginning to run away with things, but indeed losing their edge, now returning to this first floor hole. We had seen a bit of previous success for them. BDS, though, coming very, very close to taking it in their own regard. Is going to look to now steal this one away and lock in at least a guaranteed tie at 3-3 here. SSG, of course, looking to accomplish the same thing. Still very heavy on the utility mitigation front from SSG, as it has been throughout most of this half, wanting to avoid any nade-based, utility-based chaos here by still bringing both the magnets as well as the laser gates between Yeti and Rampy. Aside from that, though, usual expected amount of utility playing heavily into those goo mines on default. Still Bosco with the comfort pick, and of course, hot and cold on the ever-present Azami.
Round 5 on the board now in between these two, and it's steadfast here as we are tied. BDS going about things in quite similar fashion to what we've been seeing them before. They've really been liking this library side take, and a lot of teams do for Chalet. We've seen some teams experiment over time with some Solarium side ordeals, but it's always seemed to be that library is the favorable start. BDS is also going to have Like a Fact on a solo mission downstairs. These logic bombs giving him a lot of information. He knows some players are around here. Great trigger discipline on that, but unfortunately enough, Fultz will get taken down here after he's able to take out Shaiko. So practically an even trade, as Fultz is actually lighting the world on fire right now, as opposed to Cold and 2 as well. Been looking pretty good, these two. Brede not able to hit those crucial shots. Unfortunate stuff, as Hot and Cold will skimper off. Be able to stay alive for this one.
See, like a fact, it picked off this time. The ace in the last round, but won't be able to take it forward in this time around. Bosco shuts him down and still maintains multiple floor control for SSG here, mainly on the first floor as he tries to make that descent down through the hatch and play things out, but is instead going to be caught out by that member of SSG. Hot and Cold able to really re-rotate back around to position himself in case there's going to be any pressure towards Trophy. Not really looking like we're going to get it, so more than likely going to see him reposition yet again. BDS pushing almost entirely from library side now with the 3 remaining players they have. Just 1 player, I think, was working their way from the first floor, and that may have very well been Renshiro, who we just saw repel back up. Lems as well joining the party up here as they'll attempt to clear through this one and work their way downward to eventually get into the site. Fortunately, a player down there, they're going to have to look for a pick to really justify that type of playstyle. I don't think SSG are too keen on giving it to them unless they want to rotate over towards Solarium.
Solid stuff from BDS so far here. So they're continuing to propel themselves forward, even though they're down a man. Trying to get it done here from the fireplace side. Got somebody on an Ego balcony. Brede is going to drop down. He's going to be the only hard breach after Lems picks up Bosco. It is going to be a 3 versus 3. They've gotten the kitchen wall open, or rather the dining wall open here to attempt a plant in there momentarily, but this could be quickly thwarted from Rampy upstairs. He's got somebody in tow as well to be able to assist with some of the angle. It's going to be Yeti. Hot and Cold will be the only one on site. Alem's trying to work his way in from the hallway as well. Summon charge in upstairs, try and mess with Rampy a little bit, but he'll counter that out with a couple of bullets quite quickly. Brede will go down. That's going to be case control to Alem's. He's going to push even further to try and get this plant. The cross angles. Renshiro with a shot onto Yeti. The 2 versus 2. We got to get a plant here, but it's Rampy from upstairs. Renshiro trying to see if anybody will peek, but Rampy's not going to gift it to him. Space Station Gaming win round 5.
It's gone from Space Station Gaming, slowly collapsing away from their site setup, only when necessarily needed. BDS, of course, trying their best to encapsulate it anyway, and really looking for any type of plant opportunity they may have been able to find just to be cut off at the tail end of it from the top end as well by that member of SSG, re-solidifying the advantage for them one final time. Are they going to be able to keep it, though? It's been a very seesaw-y half so far, so a 3-3 half is very much in the cards here if BDS shows up for the master take.
Which, I mean, just as of right now, incredible from Space Station, given the circumstances of this map. I know we harped on it decently during, the prep for this, but when it comes down to it, Space Station are doing something that is completely against the grain on Chalet. It is the worst defensive win rate of any map here at LAN with a multitude of plays, and yet they're still able to at least equalize with a squad like BDS here. I mean, that's just not something you see every day.
What is not? So, trying to see if they can really lock things in for themselves. Not going to see any dramatic changes to the operator lineup. Still heavily relying, of course, on the utility mitigation more than anything else. And actually bringing the overall strategy a lot closer to the site here by adding the castle into the fold as well. Just as much freedom, so we'll probably still see some of those extensions coming out that were alive on the previous play for this site. But the late game round, once again, I think is going to rely much more heavily on defending the actual site area here instead of trying to get an advantage earlier on. Let's see how it all unfolds here. As, of course, BDS out on the map with their own strategy. Like if I'm going to try to mess around with things again on the Nooks. We'll pay close attention to him in the early round here as he tries to make that impact.
Looks like he wants to try and start downstairs from Big Garage. Drone out. BDS overall starting from that Solarium side. And we were talking about earlier, this is not usually the traditional way that we see teams go. They obviously have used it throughout the history of Chalet. It's not like it's never been done before, but it's definitely the ugly duckling of the 2 takes. So we'll see how BDS can go about this. So we're not going to have anything unique for this take, minus the Nook working its way in, also Nomad, but each one of those has its own place. I'm more talking about something like Blackbeard or something to try and manage those Solarium windows, or even the windows for bathroom over here. We see that every once in a while as well. Space Station is going to be decently spread throughout the building. Obviously, they'll be centralized around this northern area, but Fultz is going to be off on his own lands over towards Mudroom, occupying the blue stairs at the current moment. Oh, Bosco. I actually thought that was a nade going off there and killing Yeti, but he somehow stays alive. I think the frag grenade actually went underneath the jacuzzi there and soaked up most of the damage. So Yeti going to stay inside of bathroom for an extended period here, even though his number was being rung.
Lems, of course, did get picked by the defensive setup from SSG. That brings him down for the count. BDS now trying to work with the remaining 4 that they have and realizing that a direct insertion from the outside repels is just not going to work as much as they thought it was here. Trying to establish bottom to top angles where there's going to be a big risk in play because of that here. Obviously, the members of SSG will have a little bit of a advantage inside of the direct gun duel, so they have to watch out, try and see if they can catch the members of SSG by surprise here, and so far just haven't been able to do it. You're seeing them attempt to make these peaks, but look at the health pools because of that. Brede, one of the last players at full HP, gone down. Lycofac's been finished off, and here we go. The culling has begun. All these players at low HP makes for a very quick spree of kills from SSG. Renshiro, now the only one that remains in a 1v5, and SSG, nice shot there from Renshiro, at least catches Yeti. Yeti's tried that like 3 times this half, by the way, and I think he's been gutted every single time he's trying to leap over the top, so a little unlucky in that respect. But again, he's been finding that decent contribution that Stokes noted here. He's been finding a good middle ground for himself. So what previously has been a very much all or nothing play style for him. Renshiro finally reaching the end of his rope there. I believe Fultz gets credit for the final kill.
I mean, Xander, you know, if being a pro doesn't work out anymore, there's a big potential for the WWE, because that was something there. Sends himself off the top rope trying to get that ace there, but just doesn't come to fruition. But you know what does, John? What? A 4-2 half on the defensive side of Chalet. That is incredible stuff from Space Station. Let's see if they can put this offensive side together. I'm excited here. We got BDS down. They need to try and bring it back on their own defense. Let's see how they can stand up to this test of time.
Now, it's important to note that based on the score from the other stream, I don't actually know it off the top of my head, so if you guys have it up, you'll be more informed than I am. But if we continue to see SSG excel here, that potentially spoils the qualification for W7M as they are looking to make their way forward to the playoffs from this matchup. They will need to get at least one more round than SSG does to be able to lock that one in. And so far, not the best of straights in terms of... I don't know how this works out necessarily, if SSG like win this just straight up in regulation and we see W7M go to like overtime, how that would potentially play, but we'll follow that one up, of course, with our experts when we get the opportunity.
Yeah, we gotta go up into our very high tower where our analysts are secluded away. We'll speak to them and see what's going on with those numbers later on today. Make sure you guys are following all of the social medias for Rainbow Six Siege and everybody else on the talent roster and players, as the majority of them will be retweeting and interacting with stuff throughout the major. BDS is going to start downstairs for their defense, and operator-wise, I mean, they're going for a little bit of a roam here with Lycofac, but everything else making quite a bit of sense. I especially like Shaiko on the Warden. I've always liked this op when you consider Shaiko in the pool, because it helps him counter out utilities that are quite annoying and stops him from gunfighting people. Who else would you want that on?
Absolutely the case. SSG taking a very, very slow approach to things here inside of their first minute. No one even really entering into the building as of yet, just poking at a few of the windows so far here. So a very cautious approach, because, to be fair, it's a pretty complicated setup from BDS right now. A lot of players off on their own is the biggest risk about it, like we see with Lycofac right now. Zero support to this type of setup here, relying pretty heavily on the movement that the Orcs can bring to the table to get him back into good straights and good positions with the rest of his teammates. We see even more complexities deployed to the first floor, and of course, the extremities of the basement too. Fultz with an unfortunate turn of events, but the good news is Rampy has already made up for it. Fultz just getting caught there on the Jackal scan, but Rampy is right there to trade out his teammate.
My American heart bleeds for Fultz on that timing. That was truly disgusting. Lycofac, a saving grace, guardian angel, anything of the sort. Looking down on him from above, but probably joined them as he is now dead to rights, isn't he? So BDS, although quite the blunder there from Fultz for just a split second, still able to maintain this man advantage and get the cams from Dokkaebi. This is amazing here. Alems has a Valkyrie. Brede has Maestro. You have access to all of those now from the offensive favor.
Intel steal, and more than likely that is going to potentially force BDS to shoot out a few of their own cameras, be able to avoid being spotted out, especially in late round positions here. So 1 minute remains. This is the biggest problem for SSG now. The timer's still ticking very weightily against them, and they have yet to enter the basement here. So we'll have to see if they can still put things together. Only just now starting the makings of that descent. As we saw, though, getting that cam intel certainly gives them a lot of extra to bleed off of in advance, with now not needing to use potentially even their own drones down here. Certainly increases the speed of this timer a little bit as well. Rampy opens it up with a bang, knocking out Alems, just leaving Brede and Shaiko, the two site anchors, alive to fight the rest of this round off. SSG will waste no time having found that kill. They are immediately going for the jugular to try and shut this one down. Shaiko gets a little bit too roam heavy. Gets found out in the open, and Brede, the same story befalls him deeper into wine. It's a shutdown from SSG to start off the second half.
All right, Lycan, did you bring the League of Assassins here to land? I mean, these guys are firing on all cylinders. Not a single negative KD in sight fight for Space Station Gaming. Worst of all, a 4-3, and that's Bosco of all people. He's just running utility the whole damn time. As for BDS, you can definitely not say the same. Shaiko and Bride, 1-7 and 1-5 respectively. SSG shutting down Shaiko?
We'll have to see if that will truly
exclamation
be the
point,
case.
exclamation point, exclamation point.
Question mark? BDS, of course, taking their timeout right now, and they pretty much have to at this point. Taking it one round early. We've been seeing a lot of other teams do at least. They want to leave themselves a little bit of extra leading room here in the event that whatever they're going to change up after this tac pause does not work out. They'll still have that one extra round to fall back on here. But needless to say, BDS are up against the wall with SSG now claiming such a huge lead against them here, coming off the defensive side with a lead as well.
Attack timeout, very, very needed. Love the timing as well. Space Station just got to round 5, and this is where you and I over the years have found this is like really that money spot. When that team is really hyper approaching, that final round, you really don't want to call that tac timeout when they're already on match point. So when they get to round 5, it's really the last time. You want to call it then or call it, practically never, but then you wouldn't exactly be using your timeout at all, would you? And that's even worse. So for BDS, they're going to call it in good time. We'll see if it fixes anything on their defensive end. It'll at least change up their site and their operator lineup. They'll be bringing a couple different pieces here. Shaika's going to be on the Legion. We saw him playing around with this a little bit earlier on today. Hopefully helps him right the wrongs that we've seen so far here and take it to SSG. BDS needs some holy water for round 8.
SSG looks to get the penultimate point here. It's up to BDS to put a stop to it, returning to something that's a little bit more defender-friendly as they go over towards the bar setup for this second hold. And SSG, however, wasting no time adventuring themselves over towards those rappels, leading into libraries. That'll be their obvious first target, as is often the case for this site.
Yeti, the spearhead, once upon a time when it came to the Sonics. Now the IGL of SSG, the main man, the captain. And I'd say he's doing a pretty damn good job over the last stage and this LAN thus far. It obviously wasn't the greatest start, but considering this map, it's really starting to come back into their favor. I really didn't know how this is going to start off. They had that good match up against Fury, but Fury really not able to accomplish much against any of their group, co-partners here in Jönköping.
Fury is, by the way, at potential risk of being eliminated via this round of games that have come out. Not only, of course, this one here, but the other two teams that are also playing on the other side. I believe that's going to be Fury themselves up against W7M. If we are to assume W7M continues to dominate and wins the matchup versus Fury, we could very easily see SSG lock in their elimination as well with a successful victory themselves. SSG, though, going to try and close out this round. They're starting to put that pressure here onto Library, but having a little bit of trouble making the entry due to the harsh cutoffs from BDS that we expect to be established here. Yeti, though, with a potential problem. Oh, so close for both of them. Yeti not expecting the dash across, a little bit too far ahead on the pre-fire there. He tries to go back for it, a like effect side. Yeti now catches the flight coming down from a Lems, but both of them low HP. Do they dare to re-peek each other now? Like effect, he wants it. You can see him still spraying in from time to time, but Yeti, he wants to back away and play this safe from the looks of it.
Well, they got the equalizer. But these HP bars definitely are anything but. Yeti and Fultz, quite a bit of HP drained from them. You can say the same for Like a Fact. Renshiro, a little bit of a tag onto him as well. But overall, BDS, a little bit more buffed and ready for this last minute. SSG looking for match point here. This execute means so very much. Some shots ringing in through the library window. But Bride and the whole gang show up to the party. BDS make it Fultz's problem now. It looks like he might just stay outside and mess around, give SSG some time to think about things. He's just going to take his time here with this last 30 seconds.
Partner 2, Like a Fact, did eventually win that battle for the basement against Yeti, so obviously killing that part of the pinch from up top too. Felt's unfortunate turn of events stepping into that goo mine as he's now certainly been revealed. I believe he still had players close enough to be able to get the audible cue from that. So they'll begin to lock out those angles, prevent any successful drop from Fultz here. and overall allow for this round to more than likely fall into the hands of BDS. Fultz is trying to pad the stats as much as humanly possible at this point. Gives his team a little bit more time to kind of talk about the situation as well, since he's just inside of a clutch scenario right now that's pretty unrealistic to win. Eventually does get knocked out, but at least gave his team that extra 20 or 30 seconds to figure out what went wrong there and what they need to quickly change to prevent a BDS comeback. Either way, though, good bounce back from BDS after that tack pause, and it shows up just in the nick of time as they were just about to go up against a nearly unwinnable scoreline.
A lot of moving parts on that one with the utility exchange going on up top, Somas for impact charges, as well as some of the gun duels we had going on downstairs. It was really anybody's game at that moment, and then the site setup for BDS takes off like a rocket into the sky, eliminating SSG member one after another. 3 fall to the sword of BDS, and they quickly claim round 8 after that point. SSG, they still have quite the cushion though, don't they, when it comes to this game at the current moment. Haven't been able to get to that penultimate point, but they are breathing on it.
New element going to be coming in specifically for Hot, and of course is the Ying now going to potentially be brought to the table. A few changes that might actually shift away, and indeed it will. It'll go towards an Osa instead, but either way, a new element here for SSG that we have yet to see so far in this game from them. Bosco, of course, is changing over towards the Hard Breach as well, which previously was missing entirely from this lineup, and then just a few other thematic changes like Yeti going over to the much more comfortable Sophia, Fultz as well going to a much more aggressive operator on the Yana.
We're going to be making the usual rotation there for Kitchen. Now some soft paneling there at the back of the dining room as well. So some potential wall banging can commence. Either way it goes down, be potential for a kill there for either squad. Obviously, SSG is going to have to get towards the site for that really to become a big component of this. So we'll see how they deal with this opening as we're already 30 seconds in. It's all going to be onto the drone game as you'd suspect, but immediately Rampy and Fultz going to hightail it into Snowmobile, and they're going to go their separate ways. Rampy's going to go to blue, Fultz up main stairs. Like a fact, speaking of blue, clambering up top, where he's going to find Bosco inside of the library area. He's managing the windows at the current moment. That's also the case location. It looks like Fultz has made his way into Fireplace Hall here, moving his way in through bar. Nobody in gaming either. Rampy does have control of the bottom of blue at the current moment, with Like a Fact holding on to the game door.
Rampy playing this very patiently now. He continues to sit back up on top. Like a Fact in the meanwhile has that slight pixel, but that gives the window of opportunity since he's too focused on it towards Rampy. Hot and similarly finds impact against Renshiro, so SSG off to a much hotter start this time, bringing it immediately down to the 5v3. It's those site anchors, at least on the previous round, that caused some big problems for SSG when they finally went for the execute though. So this kill spree wall means a lot for the early round, does not necessarily translate into a direct win just yet for the SSG roster.
Yeah, it was 3 separate members of BDS rolling through SSG on that previous round, and it looks like it might happen again. Alems kicks off the party. He'll take down Yeti. That was that nice angle that we saw up top that he was holding onto here from Piano. SSG will be able to get the wall up top, but majority of BDS has rotated back onto site. Alems, though, still wants to stick in that area up top. You can see him over there inside of the master closet. We'll see if Space Station are thwarted by those plans. There'll be an impact EMP from Hot and Cold and a set down of Osa's shield. This is really going to assist with overwatching this plant.
I'll still be careful on the plant. You can see at least one player from the BDS roster playing this quite close to the contest at the moment inside of Kitchen there, so can very easily get in the way of the plant, but I think that's what the second Osa shield is potentially going to help out with. Just setting up a plant angle. Oh, there is that slight pinch of your body that does peek out when you're setting that shield up, and they're nearly able to get Hotton in that moment of opportunity, but ultimately the Nitro makes that shield a bit of a moot point anyways. It destroys it immediately, still leaving BDS alive with 2, and SSG out of time now. Needs to make this play directly, go straight for the fight here, and thankfully they're not going to have to work that hard to get it, but Shaiko, the reaction speed from him, second to none. Bride out, but he gets 1 for 1. The plant will go down onto the ground, and now the pressure on Shaiko. He won't be able to catch the side angle from Hotton, and he wins out the round.
Hot and Cold, some flair from back in the DZ day. He gets it done on the Thermite. Nice little 2K to wrap it up with a tight bow. And Space Station Gaming finally find match point. BDS, a lot of work to do now. No tack timeouts to help. 3 defensive rounds in a row is what we will need from the French camp in order to push us to overtime. SSG looking so dominant in day 2 here in Sweden. Only 5 rounds dropped between the 2 games.
See now if we can get the closeout from SSG. One more round needed here, and they will lock in number 7 and cause some serious problems for W7M's early qualification. We have had quite a few teams come this much closer to qualifying today. Unfortunately, to be spoiled, though, in the final moments of it. We will very much, from the looks of things, need that day 3 to settle who is going forward to the playoff stage for teams here in Group A.
Wow, we're going to be bringing Maverick out. We haven't seen Maverick in a while, actually. Once they added impact EMPs and kind of rebuffed the utility, he's just not as picked as often anymore. Still definitely a strong character, but I don't believe he even has his frag grenades anymore. It's just the M4 and the torch, which is plenty for that character. The torch is fantastic, as we all know too much. The frag grenades were just a little too hot to trot, so they had to take those away from him. Womp womp. Only 3, or actually I think it's 4 characters, something like that. I always forget Glass. That's my problem. That has the frag grenades. But either way, Fultz is going to be wielding one of them. They won't be bringing Sledge. That's usually the pair that we see, minus Yana, which she's also not going to be along for the ride either.
As you've seen, though, bandit tricking is kind of back in play now, and we even saw a great example of that from SSG back in the previous half here. So the Maverick going to be the direct counter to that, and just, okay, I'll just open the wall all on my own. You can't even stop me now. You can try to shoot me, of course.
Imagine if I had a blowtorch.
So that blowtorch will come in quite handy for SSG in terms of simplifying the snowmobile garage.
I like to think that was Maverick's pitch for Rainbows. Like, they're all in the boardroom, and they're just like, so imagine you had a blowtorch. Like, okay, I'm listening. So, yeah, but he's actually going to get...
paint your wall openings.
Yeah, exactly. Microsoft Paint that thing, and that's exactly what Yeti's going to do. He starts at the top. The Mav trick, we finally get to see it again here. He's going to make that nice little hole there in the center so they can fit utility in through it. Obviously, if you ever played Mav in your life, then you've usually done that to try and fit frag grenades through it. Like a fact, though, is going to fit a bullet in the face of Fultz. Rampy goes down to Renshiro. BDS. Oh man, this is looking scary. Renshiro gets it with the double. BDS have found themselves here. All it took was SSG activating them with that match point at the top of the screen.
And he might be getting the snowmobile garage open, but really not going to mean much for the majority of SSG at this point in the round. BDS's early game aggression finds kill after kill after kill after kill again, as we see Lems pick up Yeti. Just that one final player remaining, and Renshiro has no problem fending him off as well. Hot and Cold falls down, and we see SSG drop a very important round here, but at the same time, still that decent cushion of 2 additional rounds to be played out here before they take us to overtime.
Laughing straight to the bank with that one, huh? BDS, especially Renshiro with 3 bodies to his name in that one, but now they have to try and get it done on some less favorable sites. Some sites that SSG have been very good at attacking. Bar Gaming is one of those options. They also have Kitchen that they could potentially go to, but they're going to choose the prior. It's going to be Bar Gaming here for BDS and potentially their last round. Let's see what Shaiko's going to be on. He's going to be on the Legion, so he's probably going to be playing around the blue stairs again. We were seeing him previously hold on to some crosses when it came to Library, making it really difficult to try and get rid of this wall for SSG as they continue to add Selmas to it. He gave over the goods. He gave the impacts up and was able to eliminate a lot of that hard breach, as well as get some kills in the process as well.
SSG once again still primed and ready to close out this game on match point. We actually looking like we are going to get that gridlock here too. Haven't seen anybody switch away from it.
And we got quite some unique stuff. I mean, I haven't even seen a Finka since you and I got here in any game, and we've finally gotten it here for Fultz. He's going to be using the Spear 308 as well, which got some love after the nerf to LMGs.
Bit of Capital being added into this one for Bosco, so certainly looking to out-utility BDS on the execute, and they could certainly do that, especially given the fact that teams often rely on that little corridor between billiards as well as bar to rotate between. Look at this utility. They can lock people in there if right, cook them on the inside of it. Speaking of getting cooked, Rampy running right in to deal with Like a Fact, not letting him go crazy this round as he did on the last.
That's a really, really good idea. SSG have been very aware that BDS like to use Like a Fact on those roams, you know, defense or offense, you know, try and have him sneak around and find some of those frags. So Rampy immediately jumps into Big Garage early around, make sure nobody is around on camera, and then just holds that angle and awaits his arrival. Works out beautifully for him. Doesn't even look towards that direction, just gets bodied as soon as he attempts to cross. Space Station usually pretty good at using these advantages to their fullest. They're on the utility game now.
First of the spike strips comes out from Yeti, using most of them actually quite quickly here just to fend out the usual rotation points that would deal with fending off the staging ground that SSG has now set up for themselves. Interesting that's in the basement more than anything though, which is not always the first go-to. This is usually it instead that we're seeing SSG deploy into now. Fultz as well as Bosco trying to steal away this library control, but there's very heavy presence. Only 2 players from SSG actually trying to work their way into this area of the map, so not realistically going to be able to go for it. However, the assistance now coming in on the Capital is going to change that here. Fultz able to find out Renshiro as he's pushed out of coverage. Bring things down to only 3 here for BDS.
Minute 15. SSG have done everything right so far, not a single misstep. No damage, no anything. Just map control and kills coming their way. It's been quite the positive boon thus far for what could be our last round, unless BDS has something to say about it. It's going to be back to the drones here for SSG, but specifically hot and cold, as he's going to begin droning up blue, and this means quite a lot to the story right now, folks. You see Shaiko right there on the stairwell. Actually, no, I was wrong about that. He's inside of mud, so hot and cold, he's not even going to see him. Shaiko might have actually slipped through the cracks. This should be something that SSG checks, but as soon as that timer gets low, things just get really weird with Siege. You kind of make missteps every once in a while that you would usually check before. Hot and Cold's going to rotate over. Shaiko's close on this window. I'm getting scared here, John. Rampy's going to get a Lems, and that's going to make it a 5 versus 2. We still have all of this verticality to go through as well. Shaiko, I do believe, has been found. Hot and Cold gets him. Is it going to be a flawless round for Space Station to end it all here? It's up to Brede. He's getting burned out.
Move.
The LMG. Yeti lays him down, and Space Station Gaming gets the French squad.
Perfect counter on that final round, and exactly the way we expected to see. Specifically, those Capital incendiary bolts get used out there, literally cooking the player that tried to sit on the inside of Connector. No way to escape, as Brede is the last one standing and eventually goes down. SSG gets their revenge from earlier on in the tournament and takes this one versus BDS. We're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen. When we do come back, we'll have the breakdown of this game and the follow-through of today's events.